morning, everyone. Welcome. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started right away. We have got a lot of information, a lot of insight to offer you today in this call, so we're really grateful to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us for this call for Community Solutions hosted by the Forbes Funds and GPNP. For those of you who haven't joined us before, our team has hosted these calls weekly since March of 2020 to provide nonprofits with critical resources and updates, a shared space to discuss challenges, a snapshot of relevant local, state, and federal policies, and timely insight from subject matter experts. Since that time, the Forbes Funds and GPNP have hosted 5,569 meetings with the participation of over 47,561 participants. And we continue to hear from members that this time remains valuable for discussing emergent needs and opportunities for the social impact sector. We do all of this utilizing a dual framework that draws on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and the social determinants of health to align cross-sector and guide the outcomes of our work. Additionally, the 8 R's, the 8 returns model, guides how we measure those success or returns on various forms of investment. For today's call, we encourage you to go ahead and use the chat function to share out your name and your organization with the group, as well as any comments or questions you might have during today's call. And we strongly encourage you to join us on screen to maximize engagement. For those of you who can't join us on screen today, thanks for being here and be safe while you're in transit. We'll reserve time for Q&A after our speaker presentations. Again, there will be 2 different presentations today. We'll make sure you have time for questions after each of those. And then at the end of the call, there will be a poll. Please do be sure to complete that so that we can keep our content and resources relevant to you all. All right, starting us off today, we have got the Regional Capacity Building Initiative, and we'll be joined by Kate Freed, Jenny Giles, Kate Spar, and Stuart Yerst. The vision for the Regional Capacity Building Initiative is to create a stable, connected, and accessible network of capacity building resources that builds on existing assets, fills gaps in service, and connects nonprofit organizations to high-quality, effective solutions to maximize their community impact. RCBI will better equip nonprofit organizations in Southwestern PA with fundamental resources that help them address critical needs in fund development and financial strategy and management. To start, RCBI will focus on capacity building efforts that are integrated, accessible, and responsive to the needs of small and mid-sized organizations. So I'm going to pass it over to Fred Brown, our CEO, really quickly, just to set up our call, and then we will hear from RCBI. Fred?
Good morning, all. It's exciting to have everybody on the call as we face unprecedented challenges in our sector. Today, we wake up to new challenges and opportunities, but we also have to take into account the dichotomy that exists within our sector. The work that will be provided today and oversight is an integration of work that is happening in the rural communities, urban communities, and suburban communities. We are challenged with new and emerging shifts in our what we thought was a solid ecosystem, but every day we wake up, there's new challenges. The one thing that's prevalent is there's a need for us to work together differently than we've ever worked before. And so it is my hope and expectation that today's presentation will be a demonstration of that effort, not just in theory, but in practice. How do we move beyond the theoretical to the metaphysical? How do we account for that? As you guys know, for the last 43 years, the Forbes Funds has been doing this work. And it's almost symbolic that we've come full circle. Our initial focus when we were birthed 43 years ago, was this notion that we would help nonprofits as a result of funding stressors that may come from the state or federal level. Over the years, we've pushed organizations to think outside of that, to look at proactive responses versus reacting to systems. And as we sit here today, we're honored to be in a space where we're looking at the notion of what we call the integration of 2 key things in our 6 pivot, which is the use of technology to help aid and abet the work, and the use of a strategic business model such as an entrepreneurial mindset. And we're using EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, as a team to really shift our mindsets around this work. I will close by saying we can't do what we've always done and get what we've always gotten, but it requires us to be different, think different, operate different, and trust differently. Change moves at the speed of trust. And so we have to find spaces and places that we begin to trust each other at a deeper level, because we're just at the beginning of the turn. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fred. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to the Regional Capacity Building team. Kate Spar, would you like to start us off?
Absolutely. Thanks, Christine. And thanks, Fred, and everybody from GPNP and the Forbes Funds for allowing us to be here today to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing with the Regional Capacity Building Initiative. My name is Kate Spar. I am a consultant in the region, have been working in this region for, I get scared when I say this, but 30 years. And I'm joined today by several members of the team. You can see our team is growing, but there are 4 of us today who are going to present to you. Kate Freed, who has been a member of the project team, as well as Stuart Urist, who is leading the shared financial services effort, and Jenny Giles, who is our expert around fundraising and is helping us to develop the trainings and cohorts in that area. So we have a lot to share with you in a very short time. I'm very quickly going to give an overview of the Regional Capacity Building Initiative and how this all developed. The purpose of the Regional Capacity Building Initiative is to explore opportunities to develop capacity building resources in fundraising and financial strategy and management. So how did we land on those 2 things? Well, essentially, we were taking a look at the larger ecosystem, as well as looking at some national models and the types of capacity building that are available across the country. And, you know, there are a lot of different places we could have started. Capacity building encompasses a lot of things and has there are a lot of different pieces to it. But I think what we found was that there was a lot of interest and need in the areas of fundraising and financial strategy, especially as they relate to the sustainability, the long-term sustainability of organizations. We also are targeting small and mid-sized nonprofit organizations. And a lot of people, the first question we always get is, well, how are you defining that? And so some of it is a budget related, you know, we have a budget answer, but that's not really the only part of the story. You know, when we look at budgets, we're looking at maybe in the range of, let's say, 250,000 or maybe even 150, you know, sort of at the bottom end, all the way up to 5 million, depending on the nature of the organization. But I think what is more telling and what is really more apt to describe our focus is about the existing capacity that an organization has. So we are looking at organizations that do have some level of staff, paid staff. There are volunteer-led organizations and volunteer-driven organizations. We understand that, but we also were sort of focused on organizations that have some level of capacity, but perhaps don't have enough capacity to have people have very specialized functions like a development department or a finance department. And so that is very loosely, I think, how we're defining small and mid-sized organizations for the purposes of this initiative. So phase 1 was an exploratory process, and it really brought together a number of different people from all across the sector. We had funders who were supportive of it and wanted to make sure that, you know, we were able to explore and engage lots of different voices in this process. But we also had tons of nonprofits who were really excited about the opportunity to talk about capacity building and what was needed. You can see we had 231 people who were engaged throughout I think it was about 9 months. It was a 9-month process. And they represented all different folks. They represented consultants and intermediaries and funders and nonprofits. And you can see the different types of nonprofits. We had small, mid-size, and large. We had a great deal of small nonprofits, which we were very happy about and excited that there was such enthusiasm. We had a good showing of organizations that were BIPOC-led and serving, and individuals who represented BIPOC groups. We also were looking regionally, and so that was really important to us to have regional representation. And so we had several sessions out in Westmoreland and Washington counties and got a good showing there. And so that just gives you an idea of the folks who were participating as we were, we essentially were getting feedback and presenting possible ideas for improving the capacity building sector. So we got a lot of feedback, and it's very hard to sort of give that all to you in a quick fashion. So just a few key points. Many nonprofits have used and benefited from the work of existing intermediaries. So there was an acknowledgement that there is a lot of good going on. The Forbes Funds and others are providing really valuable resources and programs that people have taken advantage of. But one of the things that was noted was there is kind of a lack of connection, and it's difficult to find what organizations need. And so that was something that we heard a lot, and folks were really eager for this initiative to address. It was really important that new capacity building initiatives should complement and connect and not compete with or replace existing resources. And so that, I think, is something that has driven our work moving forward. And the specific gaps in capacity building around finance and fundraising were confirmed as being areas where there was a real need. Christine already went through this vision, so I'm not gonna read through it, except to say, except to perhaps stress that what we really are talking about is building on what we already have and making a system that is better connected and that is filling gaps in services, so organizations are able to receive the support that they need to build their capacity. We also had principles that were guiding, a set of principles that were guiding and continue to guide our work. And you can see them here. Again, I'm not going to read or go into great detail about all of them, but it was essential that we were really collaborating, that we were caring and kind to each other, that we were transparent with information. We wanted our approach to be equitable and purposeful. We didn't want to be wasting folks' time. We really wanted to make sure that we were utilizing the skills and the input and the momentum that we had in a positive way. And we wanted to be imaginative. We didn't want to go back to, this has already been tried, or, that we can't do it because. We were trying to think of new ways to approach some of the challenges that we were and opportunities that we were finding, and wanted it to be value driven. And I think that these all continue to drive our work as we're actually implementing the pilots and the other components of the initiative. So this is a list of items that came out of the Regional Capacity Building Initiative as pilots, future projects, areas where folks said, this is what you really need to focus on if we are, to make change in the capacity building system. So we have 3 pilot projects, which we'll talk about, that are all in various stages of implementation. We also have future projects, areas that were brought up as being important to nonprofits, and they wanted us to work on solutions in those areas. But of course, we can't do everything at once. So we're trying to take it step by step. And then we also, in the meantime, are trying to build coalitions among various groups. We have a coalition of funders that's meeting. We have the intermediary groups that are meeting with each other and connecting with each other. And so that's an important part of this as well, is really continuing the momentum and having folks come along, with this process. And so we're really building it together. So this just gives you a sense of scale. We put together a 4-year budget, and we have funding commitments from the funders that you see on this slide: Venter, Eden Hall, Grable, Hines, Hillman, and McCune. Many of them have been supportive of capacity building in the past. They have a long history of supporting capacity building, and so this made sense for them to be sort of leads as engaged funders in this process. And the budget is $7.5 million over 4 years. I think it's really important to note that this is supposed to be additive. So this is not taking away from any pool of funding that would be invested in existing intermediaries. This is meant to build that, I'll say, that kind of connective tissue, and to fill in some of those gaps that we've been talking about, to build a more connected capacity building system. So the first pilot is around assessment and navigation. The primary objective of this pilot is to create a centralized assessment and navigation function. It's going to help nonprofits identify their capacity building needs and access appropriate resources. We're hoping that it will enhance connections between the intermediary organizations. They've been making those connections themselves and are working together, I think, in a variety of different ways. And so we want to, continue to enhance that. It also will connect consultants and other capacity building providers overall so that we have a better understanding of all the different things that are available to nonprofits and can better guide organizations to what they need. At the same time, we're hoping that this pilot will also help us better identify those gaps in capacity building services. As we have a better idea of what is being offered, we also will have a better idea of what is needed. And so, we can work together to determine how to create those continuums of service that meet organizations where they are. So I am now going to turn it over to Stuart Urist. He is the Program Director for Shared Financial Services, and he can tell you about that pilot.
Hey everybody, appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. My name's Stuart Urist. As Kate said, I'm Program Director for Shared Financial Services, and I've spent a bit over a decade working in kind of small and mid-sized nonprofits, kind of specializing into finance, and now really excited to have the chance to spearhead this initiative to strengthen organizations. Our pilot began launched in early December. And we've been doing a lot of work and research since then. One of the first things we decided to do was get together with the advisory board, which is helping shape this, help select me, and has helped kind of build the founding vision for this piece of our work, and define what our mission, vision, values are going to be. There are other people in this space, right, who provide these type of services in a for-profit sense, but it is also one of the most proven types of shared services that exists nationally, and talking to other folks that are working around the country. So we wanted to define who are we going to serve, what are we trying to do kind of differently. So the mission we're working with right now, Shared Financial Services gives small and mid-sized nonprofits the tools to build financial literacy, make data-informed decisions, and clearly communicate their financial story. There's a lot of pieces and tools that underpin that. We're really focused on, what is the impact? Like, how can we strengthen everyone's ability to function in their day-to-day, to generate, more resources and spend less time, focusing on this type of stuff, working in partnership with us. Thinking about, the kind of ideal clients that we're going to be serving. They're going to be small and mid-sized nonprofits, as we said. And I pared it down, from that larger kind of $5 million target to organizations under $2.5 million. And I talk about, where I think are kind of our main base, the clients, but, those organizations that I'm imagining, right? They've limited financial staffing resources, maybe just a bookkeeper, an executive director who has to wear the CFO hat alongside, right? And they could really use some reinforcement there. They're suffering from turnover, which is a really frequent thing that we've talked to folks running into. And organizations that are interested in bolstering this function, they see the value that it's going to bring to their decision making, and they want someone to partner with on that. We're going to begin with Allegheny County arts organizations. In some ways, we're a successor to some of the initiatives that have been in Allegheny County. There's the arts finance cohort, which worked with a number of organizations and a kind of fractional CFO. There's a longstanding environmental finance cohort. We have proven models of this in the CFO kind of space. And what we're looking to do is to expand that idea of sharing to, kind of mid-level and, more data entry staff. So you could really have a partner to outsource, that entire kind of finance function and share with other similar types of nonprofits. And it's also really important to us that we begin to work regionally, pretty quickly. So although we're starting in Allegheny County, starting in arts clients, we're going to be working regionally. We want to serve different subsectors. We want to, work with a lot of different types of organizations as we, serve broadly here. And I just laid out, a few of the things that I think will come to organizations, from the Shared Financial Services program. And some of the things we've heard, I've talked to other intermediaries around the country. I've talked to a lot of organizations, that have various needs and are trying to figure out, what would this look like for them? And I mentioned turnover. I mean, that's massive. It's hard to keep staff, and then you have to rebuild everything. So, providing reliability in that space and also providing documented processes. So even if you outgrow, the shared financial services, we will be strengthening organizations, right, and allowing them to move forward. We see clarity, and they want straightforward retainer pricing. They want the most cost-efficient model we can provide, and they want access to that higher level expertise, right? Folks that have worked in a number of different organizations. So we see a lot of, possibilities, as we begin working with organizations. This kind of lays out, how we are breaking out, what are the services that we provide, right? So there's kind of a full spectrum that I put down into 3 buckets here. This basic finance function, right? This is, all your bookkeeping, all your AP, all your AR, taking you up through month-end close, reconciliation, issuance of your periodic financials, right? All of the kind of, bread and butter business there that you need to get going. And additionally, what we've heard, folks really could use a hand with presentation of financials for grants, both at the budgeting process, right? And then later when you're reporting, and if you're working together on both of those, it makes it a lot easier on both ends of it. And also, support through the audit process. So that's kind of like our basic finance package there. We're not doing payroll at this point. I'll call that out, but it is something that we're interested in doing later on. And then what complements it, right, is a strategic finance. And this is more like the fractional CFO partnerships that we've seen happening already regionally, right? Like the arts finance cohort, the environmental finance cohort that I noticed. Organizations sharing a CFO function. And what we're trying to do is get specific about, what are those CFO roles and what are they going to be working in versus, where would a different, set of skills, be the best place to reinforce this. Sometimes folks have had to kind of play in both areas, but we're trying to drill this, strategic finance into really being that thought partner for the executive, for board leadership, that is helping them think about, charting the future trajectory based on all these good inputs that, that we've talked about, in the basic finance. Also helping their budgeting, their forecasting function, helping them plan for cash, and when we want to think about kind of shaping the reporting package, what is actually the best information to put in front of your board or to provide regularly to the executive, something that's comprehensible and that is, again, going to empower them with kind of their own financial data story. And then, full service being all of the above. So yeah, I talk about, the different kind of target clients there, and I try to give a range of the pricing that we're thinking right now in that chart as well, which folks will be able to access. We're vetting not just on budget size, but complexity, right? How complex your processes are, least to most. So there's quite a range there, but, just trying to give folks about an idea about how we think this works based on our multi-year model. So things are moving along very well with the project. Like I said, we're heading into our 3rd month now. We're looking to intake our first client in March and then continue to grow over 2025, targeting up to, to have about 10 clients by the end of the year. We have a roadmap that goes through 2028 that shows us with about 47 clients, a substantial staff to support them. And, we've been having a lot of conversations, like I mentioned, with other folks doing this business nationally, with other people who, consult for nonprofit organizations locally, possible clients, trying to, take the time to build it right at the outset and also spool up kind of slowly and deliberately so we can learn the lessons in partnership with those early clients and build something that's really going to be sustainable and helpful for, the number of organizations we hope to serve. So work is underway. As mentioned there, we've hired our founding CFO, Aurora Smith, which I'm thrilled about. She began last week. And my calendar is full of interviews with accountants and bookkeepers and the great folks, that I hope to begin, working to serve nonprofits here with soon. So I'll just mention that up on the website, there is a SurveyMonkey form where folks can indicate their interest on the RCBI site. And that, will get you onto my communication list. That can, be the spark for, a meeting with us to talk about more about what your specific needs are, organizations. But yeah, very excited to develop this and grow it. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Ginny.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate going last because I can tend to talk a lot. So this does help me, be focused. So the goal of our, of the fundraising trainings, of the pilot is to create that continuum of trainings to grow the fundraising skill and capacity of small to mid-sized organizations. And again, we just want to reiterate that the budget sizes that we've mentioned are not hard, firm lines. They are guidelines. So as we've been moving forward, we have definitely been flexible on that. So if this is one kind of takeaway that I would want folks to hear, is that these budget sizes are flexible. So yep, there we go. So as we are developing this continuum, we again reiterate, we are leveraging and collaborating with the existing resources that are already there. There are wonderful, talented trainers and organizations that are just offering high quality products. But sometimes, we learned that there just wasn't enough of that. So if we are providing something that may feel like a duplication, that may be a result of, hey, this program was so awesome, we need 100 more slots. We need to serve so many more organizations for it. And then we do are really working, this is in our DNA, to be culturally competent to support organizations. Looking at our diverse geographic, this is not a Pittsburgh-centric initiative. This is really regional, and there are different needs in different geographic areas for different demographics, for different missions. So I lead a consulting company called Community Equipped, and we have that experience in the different geographic areas with different missions and demographics as well. So that's really going to be part of the DNA in all of our training. And we are measuring our impact. We're measuring our effectiveness. This is extremely important to us, that we want to do everything we can to really make sure we are meeting the community need. We see ourselves as very much in service to the community. And then we're using the feedback that was, gathered during that first phase to inform how the trainings are delivered, the content. We heard loud and clear that, yeah, people want skill building, but also opportunities for networking and community building. And so that's going to be integrated in there. We want to provide that. And not just building the capacity of the organization, or excuse me, not just building the capacity of individuals, not just training individuals and doing that skill building, but really building the capacity of the organization as well. So that's kind of our method in there and our goals. And then moving into what we're doing, the first thing that will be kind of launched when the RCBI launches their new website is a resource library. So this is just a collection of vetted and cultivated resources hosted on the website. We are creating a series of introductory videos for a variety of fundraising topics with accompanying resources. So the idea is that you don't have to spend time on a Google search, that you can come to the website and be able to find most of what you would need in sources that have been vetted and cultivated for you. So with different experience levels, different price points, different kind of in-depth level, all that sort of thing. And then the fundraising readiness training. This is a series, and you can see there is a website there. And the confirmation, Kate Freed put in the chat that if you registered for it already, there is a confirmation of more details coming this week. This is a training for organizations that maybe have not been doing a lot of individual or corporate or fundraising, and they want to start doing it, or maybe they've been doing it or it kind of declined and they're ready to kind of ramp up and start fresh. So this is really about getting the organization ready to begin fundraising. And I will note that even though technically the registration has closed, we do have some open spots in Westmoreland and Washington County. So that link is going to be open to register for those counties for this week. So please spread the word on that. And I will say the Allegheny County session filled up so quickly that we are working really, really hard and doing our best to actually create a second set of dates. And this is what is kind of delaying the confirmation a little bit, is that we're doing our best to absolutely accommodate everyone. We really care about that. And so then the in-depth cohort that will be coming next year is going to be announced later in the year after we gather feedback from the readiness trainings and let that inform our next steps. But the purpose of this is going to be going more in depth with a smaller group of organizations, and it will be longer and just more in depth and really provide some practical learning tools. Our approach to all of this is to make it streamlined and focused, so everyone who attends the training is can go home with some things that they can implement right away. That's the right fit for their organization and their capacity, their current capacity. All right.
Thanks so much, Jenny. Good morning, everyone. Kate Freed with the project management team. I'm just going to go over a couple of other pieces, and we know that this presentation will be available. So please, if you have questions, add them to the chat. We'll be able to be on line as we go forward if there are additional questions. So the Regional Capacity Building Initiative is not a very innovative name. It sort of tells you what it is. We have been working on new branding and a website that we intend to launch, which will be completed sort of in March, April, and we'll be excited to share that with everyone. We will put into the chat a link where you can register to continue to get more information about the Regional Capacity Building Initiative and be informed of what's happening. We've launched a quarterly e-newsletter. We have over 500 people on our list so far. And the first one just went out at the end of January. So please do sign up if you're interested in learning more along the way. And we're continuing to document learning. We stay tuned. We are hoping to have sort of an annual update that will be just open for anyone who's interested to hear what we've learned over the year and what's coming up for the next. So more to come on that. That'll happen over the summer. I just briefly want to share with you sort of so you understand what some of the transitional governance and the strategy groups are. So as this is an initiative that is happening, we are, Fred really talked about it at the beginning. We have to be sort of working in community with each other, and everyone needs to be at the table, and we need to be connected in various ways. So this initiative has really been thoughtful about how to ensure that there are various groups at the table to have conversation. So we do have an executive advisory committee that really helps to provide oversight to the project management. But we also are regularly meeting with a group of funders. I'll share that list in a moment. Our community advisors is a group of 18 nonprofit leaders across 3 counties who are helping to give insight and advise on the process. And of course, the capacity building intermediaries are another really important group to all of this work happening together. So this is the executive committee. It's 14 people. We have 7 funders and 7 nonprofit leaders are on this. Those with the little red asterisks next to them, they are individuals who were part of the advisory or design groups in phase 1. It was really important that we had some continuity, but we also wanted to bring new voices to the table. This is the group of intermediary capacity building partners that have come to the table and are important to the work that's going forward. As I mentioned, we're bringing the funders are coming together, and they're talking about not just their support of this initiative, but how they need to be supportive in the long term and think about how they support the nonprofit sector related to capacity building. So these are all the organizations, the funders who have been coming together to talk about this, to think about how they can be working together in community and improving their supports. Those that are bolded, those are the organizations that, as Kate showed earlier, have already made investment into this 4-year initiative. This is a list of our community advisors. Some of you, we had an open call and a process for reviewing the organizations that the executive committee gave insight into to help sort of select who would be part of this, making sure that we had sector and geographic representation for nonprofits. So we've had one meeting with this group already and looking forward to continuing to engage them in the process. Just a note about some other key partners. This is like a lot of people are involved with this initiative, which is great. Grantmakers of Western Pennsylvania, they are the fiscal sponsor for the pilots and the fund where funders are making their investments. And as their role is as an entity already, that they will likely be playing a role in convening and continuing coalition building for funders. New Sun Rising is our program partner for the shared financial services pilot that Stuart shared. And Ginny and her team from Community Equipped are our program partner for the fundraising training. We've also engaged with social science consultants as our evaluation partner for the initiative and for the pilot programs. Really important that we are ensuring we know what's happening along the way for the process.
Kate, I'm going to jump in because it's 10:35 and I know that we want to turn it over to SWPPA. But I know there's additional information, and I know some of it is being shared in the chat about how to engage with various things, and we'll continue to share that certainly through GPNP as we move forward. So Emily, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thanks everyone. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Kate and Kate squared. I will turn it over to Jen Blatz because Jen is the wonderful GPNP partner who actually connected us with Joe and the resource that SWPPA has to share this morning. Just for some quick context as we're kind of switching gears a little bit to the policy update. This is very much an example of the lean into expertise and duplicate resources in multiple places, but not duplicate efforts. So anybody who's following the conversations around Medicaid and changes in policy, look to SWPPA for leadership in this space. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jen. Thank you so much, Jen.
Great. Thank you, Emily. Great to see so many faces this morning and several familiar faces. So thank you for having us. I will be really quick because I know we are a little short on time. So my name is Jen Blatz, and I'm here in my capacity today as a board member of the Southwest Pennsylvania Partnership for Aging and also the chair of the membership committee. So I'm just going to put a quick plug in that SWPPA is a membership organization, and I'll share some information about how you might consider joining. But we are here today to talk to you about something that I know is on a lot of your minds, which is the potential of substantial changes and cuts to Medicaid. And what we decided to do, because SWPPA has a 10-county footprint, is kind of lead the charge to coordinate county by county with outreach, not only to our federal elected officials, but also hopefully to all levels of elected officials. And fortunately, Joe Angelelli, who's here with us today, is not only the chair of the SWPPA board currently, but also is just incredibly knowledgeable about how all of this stuff actually works and can help translate it for regular people to understand. Also, Joe is, in my opinion, just a really huge asset and what I like to say, a national treasure in terms of his passion and advocacy for older adults. So I'll be happy to kind of help Joe by answering questions in the chat. And Joe, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Thanks, Jen. Great to be here, everybody. Nice to see many familiar faces. So I'm Joe Angelelli. As Jen said, I'm the board president of SWPPA. I'm a gerontologist by background. I spent the last 8 years working at UPMC Health Plan in different capacities as a senior advisor. So I was working a lot on payment model demonstrations, but here today as a SWPPA board chair to share, I'm going to share my screen here so we can give just a brief, can folks see that? Okay. So we're been around 37 years, membership, all volunteer. We work with association management to help put on conferences and our communications, but it's really all along has really been a wonderful table. It started really because back then there was no internet and we didn't know what was happening in Harrisburg. So folks had to come together and really kind of get on the same page locally about aging. What we do, we convene and collaborate, we educate and use those convenings for networking, and we do policy research and advocacy. Most of you, I hope, are familiar with Age Friendly Greater Pittsburgh, a wonderful initiative that SWPPA initiated 10 years ago now. that's involves over 100 different organizations. It's really, I'm actually sitting in Laura Poskin's office here at Age Friendly because I have a meeting right after. So we have a lot of folks that are we brought into sort of the aging conversation who are in the arts, who are interested in understanding that they're in aging too. So I would direct folks to Age Friendly Greater Pittsburgh for lots of ways to just get involved at the neighborhood community level and really changing the conversation around aging. And we're all aging, right? It's not just about older adults. This is 1995. This is some of the early visioning when they came together to think about what the future held. We've brought in all sorts of national experts over the years. Gray Panther founder Maggie Kuhn was here with, and that's her with Charlie Pruitt, who was the co-founder of SWPPA, Dr. Bill Thomas, Dr. Bob Butler, geriatricians. We do these education and networking. I saw Nancy Kukovic is on the call. She's right there in the middle, a longtime supporter of SWPPA. And then this policy research and advocacy, again, bringing together different secretaries of aging over the years and assistant secretaries for aging at a national level. This is a slide that I presented, an updated slide at the last conference in November. It was originally presented in 2015, and that was where the star is about the number of people over 65 in this 10-county region. And you can see now it's 2025, and we have indeed grown to about 550,000 folks across the region, growing at about 10 to 12,000 people per year. This is the big slide in terms of the implications for these Medicaid conversations. As you can see, we've had a bit of a lull of our growth of the over age 85, but what this slide shows is in the next 15 years, the number of folks over 85 in Allegheny County is going to go up by 70%. So from 35,000 to 60,000 in just the next 15 years. So we like to think of aging as an asset. And, this is an amazing thing that we have so many older adults and old among us, but it obviously creates immense challenges in terms of our systems of care. And the big element there is the Medicaid system. This just shows some of the neighborhood level aging that has happened in the last 50 years. And this is just some more stats on the particularly most vulnerable population of folks who are living alone, 37% of older adults living alone. And you can see how it breaks down among different groups. This is the population that we're trying to reach in so many different ways, and we can support them in their communities to be healthy and supported. It is good for everybody, obviously, but it is a huge challenge because there are so many folks out there living alone. So what are we doing at the current moment? So I'm not, I'm just going to assume folks are following the news around some of the Medicaid proposed cuts, but there was a proposal about 10 days ago circulated in the House and Senate about reducing the Medicaid spending over a decade by $2.3 trillion, which would be a 30% cut to Medicaid, primarily, by lowering the rate of the matching rate. So the way it works is the state gets their Medicaid dollars matched by the federal government at a certain percentage. And what is being proposed, a couple things are being proposed. Just to lower that outright, the level of that match, or do a block grant, essentially a per capita cap on how much the Medicaid program would grow over time. This has been debated for decades around the block granting, and the rationale is, for the folks that are supportive of it, is that it would give the states the flexibility to do different things. Well, the states have a fair amount of flexibility at the moment. They need the money from the federal government to run the programs. So what we've done, and these are not quite on our website yet, but they will be by the end of the day, we've created 10 different policy memos for each county. And we've taken data sources from about 15 different data sources, mostly state, but also some national things that summarize Medicaid numbers at a county level. And we've put them into this. These are screenshots from the 2-page memo, front and back, one pager. That really just puts the numbers on the impact by the county. So you can see here in Allegheny County, 244,000 folks rely on Medicaid. 39% of those are children, 33% seniors, pregnant folks, or people with disabilities. It's more than, it's funds behavioral health, substance use disorder treatment, community health centers, rural hospitals, in-home care, nursing homes. Our memo focuses mostly on the long-term service and support sector, which, you know, supports people who are older and folks living with disabilities. But here are some of the stats for Allegheny County. This is just some top line, you know, 28.8%, as I showed before, over 65. 31,000 folks in Allegheny County qualify for what's known as community health choices. So that's services that are designed to support people to stay in the community or pay for nursing home care if that's the only option. But it's mostly geared toward getting to people earlier with enough services to keep them out of transitioning into more costly nursing homes. So there are 8,973 folks, residents in Allegheny County currently who get home and community-based services. And the great majority of that is some level of home care, personal care in the home, but it also includes technology, other things to support them in their home, home modifications, things like that. Medicaid pays for 2,800 folks in these 43 nursing homes in Allegheny County. And then this is 952 community living homes in Allegheny County with over 2,500 residents there with intellectual developmental disabilities or autism who benefit obviously from the program. There are over 16,000, almost 17,000 people employed in Allegheny County's 562 what are known as in the Department of Labor's tracking nursing and residential care facilities. And they have annual wages in the a lot of annual wages. 24,000 folks working in 2,000 social assistance organizations. Those are broadly defined, but earning $919 million in annual wages. In 2022, Medicaid funded over $240 million worth of home and community-based services to many of the 490 different home care agencies that are licensed with a business address in Allegheny County. And Medicaid paid for $190 million to the Allegheny, those 43 nursing homes I mentioned. So really the issue here is these proposals to lower the federal matching rate will really force the Commonwealth to either cut those programs outright or cut other programs in the state to make up for making those cuts less extreme. So it's really imperative that we not allow these cuts to go through. We will see increased all the bad things, as you can imagine: new tax burdens, lost jobs, economic activities, and really it's going to trickle down to municipal budgets. I mean, it is literally, these cuts are so significant that municipalities will be trying to figure out how they take care of homeless older people, and that's where we're at. So what we have, these are the references. Again, this is really a 2-pager on our website that you can download for each of the 10 different counties. We'll have all of those stats by county measured at that county level. But we're asking folks to reach out to county officials, municipal officials, just to educate them about this, because as you may know, and you know, so many folks, when they think about Medicaid, they have a stereotype in their mind about who it's for. It's for all of us, really. It's for long-term care. It's effectively a middle class benefit that people have to spend down to get to, right? So, so I'll stop sharing my screen right there, but and take questions, I suppose, and thoughts from other folks on what I just shared.
I haven't seen any questions come through in the chat, but one of the things that I know that folks are going to ask in response to Jen's note about like different levels of memberships and how that relates to the advocacy work. What are some of the things that you're kind of working to put in place for individual involvement, but also kind of like where is SWPPA leading in that space? And I directly mean like tactical pointing to resources, because I know there's a lot of questions from folks around like advocacy versus lobbying that I'll get into in just a sec.
Yeah,
Jen, I don't know if you want to take that, but I mean,
that's sure. So Emily, the basic plan is well, I guess the right word is basic. We're going to organize county by county and have kind of a planning session and do a call out to, so for instance, anyone that's a SWPPA member in Westmoreland County will make many efforts to reach out to the people in that specific county, but we would also be counting on, obviously our members to forward things around so we can go county by county and think through who might be the people locally that who most need to hear this information. And we really are not trying to scaremonger here. We're trying to make sure that information is getting to people, not only about the fact that SWPPA is here and we can help convene these conversations, but these fact sheets that Joe has put together, I think are a really invaluable resource. I think a lot of us in this space are concerned about going in with all the facts, and we do have a lot of facts, but I think in this particular instance, the goal here is to try to get, especially some of our elected officials and other people who are pulling levers of power, just to go on the record to say, I am against these cuts. We don't have to intellectualize it too much. We just want to try to get them on the record. So, so Joe and I are going to kind of lead this through the SWPPA kind of organizational chart, if you will. I would say there's a fair bit of urgency as well. So we're really going to try to get these meetings moving in the next couple of weeks. Joe and I just need to get our heads together on schedule. And then we'll try as best as we can to include and invite as many people to these information sessions, which of course will be online as possible. So it's a pretty basic outreach plan, but that is the current plan.
Thank you so much, Jen. And I just saw a few more questions come into the chat. So one from Dr. Gary Webb. Understanding that you sent a survey to nonprofits on federal funding cuts to discuss with elected officials, do you have the results of that survey / are they shared as part of this conversation?
I'm not fully familiar with what he's referring to there. That it might have been somebody else that sent something out. If you know, I don't think we sent something out on that specific. Did we, Jen? I think I would know.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that there was a Survey Monkey that was sent out, but maybe it was another organization.
Tiffany, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know who sent that. I don't remember who sent it. It wasn't SWPPA.
Now, there are a few conversations about wanting to collect that information. I have a hypothesis, but I'm not going to say it since we're recording and I don't want to be wrong. And then I saw a second question from Rebecca, who I know is with the class team, Community Living and Support Services, about having met with a state legislator on Friday of last week. And they said that people need to reach out about this now. And so I really just want to kind of underline from that comment, Joe's point about the importance of education around the impacts of these things, which the one-pagers will be really helpful about. Rebecca, did you want to jump in and share anything else about that? About being proactive, especially?
Well, I guess what they're saying is that they really haven't gotten enough feedback from the public across the state on a state level about this issue. It seems like most of it's concentrated on the federal level, which obviously, yes, but getting ahead of it now is super important. And the education piece, again, is important because I'm amazed at how many people don't actually understand where their services and supports come from and how it trickles down. I had a few conversations over the weekend with families, and they had absolutely no idea that it was all connected. So there's that.
And what we've heard just on the timing question is that, this could happen. The Senate could come out with their reconciliation bill as early as the end of this week. And just so people are clear, I mean, the messaging here is that this is to pay for the tax cuts. So they have to find money somewhere to pay to extend the tax cuts. And they're looking to the Medicaid program as a big source of that.
And I think that's a beautiful segue into Nancy's comment around the general population not understanding how much of our budget's nonprofit, but I mean, support work in general, being funded by government resources. And so looking at diversified funding streams, yes, absolutely. But also as one of them is under attack right now, it's really important to really reinforce how deep these dollars go. And I appreciate your comment, Joe, about like you have an idea in your head, right? Your perception or assumption about who benefits from Medicaid, but it's a lot of people that don't often get talked about as well. And looking at last comment, Ginny, thank you so much. The app 5 calls is really easy to use to reach representatives and a great tool to share with stakeholders. I've also seen this, and I appreciate that because we're trying to figure out what messaging needs to go out and from whom. So I really appreciate that. Jen or Joe, anything else you wanted to add? And I know you mentioned that the one-pagers would be on the website this afternoon. I saw, Jen, your contact information in the chat. Joe, if you're comfortable sharing yours as folks are kind of navigating this, please do. But other than that, if you have a final message for folks, that would be helpful.
I would just say, talk to your neighbors about this, talk to your everybody of influence in your community, see if you can support them to be educated about how this program works, who it impacts in your community, and to carry the message forward to the broader public.
And I'll just jump in to say thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. This is a huge group of people, and we really appreciate this. And also, let's not let the perfect get in the way of the good. Please, if you know a AAA director anywhere in the state, please pick up the phone and call them, talk to them. I think everyone is just in triage mode right now, and we are trying to help put a little bit of order to that chaos and help provide as much support as we can. So my cell and email are in the chat, and truly reach out. I always like to say I'm a Gen Xer. I like to talk on the phone. So please call me if you prefer to talk on the phone. And again, thank you so much to Emily and everybody here at GPNP, and Fred. We really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you probably just saw a pop-up poll on your screen. Please fill out those questions really quickly, because this is a weekly kind of pulse that we take on the sector and those who are able to participate each Monday morning. This has been identified as a really good time for convening, collaborating, sharing questions, even if they're beyond what our anticipated agenda is for the morning, because it's a good space to connect with like-minded folks who are dealing with very similar things right now. To underscore, anybody can join these calls for community solutions on a weekly basis. You don't have to be a GPNP member. This is an open space, so please share the registration link with members of your ecosystem. This morning's call is a really good example of different types of supports in different spaces, whether it's capacity building, direct advocacy resources, or again, just kind of that networking. I saw some side conversations happening in the chat from folks that need to reconnect. And I just, again, really want to offer this space to be what you need right now. From GPNP in terms of a tactical perspective, I heard from some members over the weekend that a lot of the messaging and marketing is a little bit overwhelming at this point, which is general consensus in the public. And also the general public doesn't have that mission and mandate to continue supporting those who feel unsupported. And so there's a lot of messaging around what nonprofit organizations cannot do around advocacy. So this morning, I wanted to remind you of what you should be doing. So exactly as Joe and Jen said, educating your members and partners and those you serve on the issues, provide nonpartisan information on key policy impacts relevant to your mission versus aligned with specific party or individual judgments or recommendations. That's a clear line between advocacy and education. Or advocacy and lobbying is education, and we want to steer towards education, encouraging civic engagement. So promoting voter registration, participating in civic engagement across your ecosystem, conversations like these, contributing to mission-aligned advocacy and policy impacts. SWPPA is leaning into their expertise this morning, providing updates to inform the ecosystem so other members and organizations don't have to shoulder that work. You have the talking points, you have Joe and Jen as resources. Don't feel the need to collect this information on your own, but please do share it. Monitoring policy impacts beyond expertise. If Medicaid in this conversation is beyond your typical mission or focus of your organization, staying informed and also responding to calls to action is really important. We have to think as organizations and as leaders within those organizations, how we are blocking time to make sure that we're supporting the work beyond our own mission as well, because this is a mutually reinforcing web of support that we have as a social impact sector. And so really leaning into that, staying informed and cluing in tactical places so you don't burn out and can also be supportive is really important. And again, maintaining neutrality, talking about education and impact of policy is absolutely okay. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good, as Jen said. And if you're calling on behalf of your 501c3 versus as a citizen or constituent, make sure that you are remaining nonpartisan in communications. That includes if you are sending messages out on apps or via email or, you know, as texts. If your number or your information is associated with your nonprofit, make sure that that you're really leaning into that education and impact versus, you know, lobbying if you're really unsure about that. We'll be providing safety and supports for nonprofit sector employees and ongoing supports in the specific policy areas listed at the bottom of the screen. And again, making sure that our individual organizations' houses are in order. We're filing 990s with the state, ensuring advocacy and lobbying efforts are IRS and state regulation compliant. We'll be providing updates on that and filing your annual report with the state this year properly because there are some new laws that go into effect. There's a lot to keep track of right now. Make sure that you're doing the things to plan and stay focused in the next 30 days so that you can continue doing this work, you know, in a year from now. That's a delicate balance. If anyone has any questions or, you know, wants some support on how to do that, just a listening ear, please feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for your time this morning. I appreciate the RCBI team for jumping in with really relevant, especially with the back office support resources that are available for nonprofits as we're all considering, you know, how we're going to have to think and shift differently in response to some of the policy and social changes on the table right now. And thank you to SWPPA for lending your expertise, sharing the memos and talking points as a resource. We'll be sure to share those out with our ecosystem this week. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next Monday.